Okay, now let's move to our web browser and we can go to either make.powerapps.com or go to powerapps.microsoft.com, from which we can sign in or start for free. And if we already have the account and the session started, we're good to go, and you're gonna see this screen. Now make sure that in this area of the screen you select the right environment that you have created for these labs, because if I go directly from make.powerapps.com, it takes me directly to the default environment for the organization I am part of, but I have created a specific environment for this one, which is Contoso Test. So make sure that you have that one selected before moving forward. This is the home of Power Apps, in which the first thing that we see is the definition of Power Apps and a link so we can learn more about what the service does. And it's great because we not only learn about the service, we also have some learning links. If we click on Get Started, that's going to take us to the Microsoft Learning path, in which we can learn even more about Power Apps. And we can also see the community link, which is great because sometimes if you have any issue or you're not sure how to handle an error or do something, most likely somebody else already has that issue, so somebody most likely have asked that very same question on the community. So make sure to join and to use that as a resource of learning, because there's a lot of great content and a lot of great advice in there. Now, if I go to apps, what I'm gonna see is the list of apps that I have created for this environment. Since this is a new environment, I don't see anything yet here, but once we create our app, we're gonna see it listed here. If we go to the create section of this screen, we're gonna see different options. We have an option to start our app from zero or to start it from some data that we have in our environment. This is really great because if you select any of the sources like Dataverse, SharePoint, or Excel or SQL Server, it's gonna create an app for us without us even having to code anything. So that's pretty great for learning, because you can create an app from this and see how the app was created, take a look at the formulas, take a look at the screens, take a look at what a button does, and all of that. So make sure that if you wanna learn a little bit on the general design or the general functions that we use for apps, you can get started by doing this. And another pretty great resource for learning are these templates, those pre-generated applications that Microsoft has developed for us to start using. For example, there's one here for leave requests. So if you open this specific app, it's going to create an app in your environment that mimics a leave request process, and this data can be stored, for example, in a OneDrive file. And what's pretty great about this, using these pre-developed apps, is that you can learn about collections, about variables. You can see how Microsoft has developed all of this, learn about the logic where you can put some data and all of that. So apart from using the start from data pre-generated apps, you can also use the start from template, and it's pretty great because you're gonna learn a lot about different concepts in Power Apps. For this specific lab, we are creating a customized app for this organization, so we need to start our app from blank. So we're gonna go here, start from blank app, and here it's gonna ask us what do we wanna do. The focus of this lab is a Canvas app, so we're gonna select Canvas apps here. Let's click on create and let's assign a name. Then click on create again. We need to wait a couple of seconds or minutes until everything is ready. Since we created from blank, we're not gonna see anything in our app. If we would have created an app from, for example, SharePoint, we would see a form, a list of records, an option to delete, and all of that. This one is completely blank and only has one screen. This is the general layout of Power Apps, and there are a lot of options that we can use to customize our apps. The first thing that we see is this left pane on the left side of the screen. And this is the navigation pane, which shows us all the screens, the data sources, and the controls that we have in our app. In this case, we only have screen 1 because our app is empty. But if I go, for example, to insert and then I insert a label, you're going to see how this label it's going to show up below screen 1 as an object of this screen. If we would have more screens, they would be listed here. We also have this plus icon in which we can add new objects or apps. To add this label, I want to insert and then label, but you can also do it directly from here. And that did the very same thing. We also have here an icon to check the data sources of our app. For now, we're not gonna worry about that, and we're gonna come back to this feature later. Let's go back again to the tree view, and I'm gonna delete these two objects. And now let's talk about the middle pane. And that's actually the canvas in which we are doing all the design of the app and all the configuration. This is pretty much the canvas where you design how you want it to look for the end users. And keep in mind that Power Apps has a you get what you see design. And keep in mind that Power Apps has you get what you see design philosophy. So whatever you do here is very similar to what the end user is gonna do. So if I add a new button and I put it here, it's blue color. If I want to change it to red, I just change it to red, and the users are gonna see exactly what the color that I put to this button and exactly in the place where I put it. So that's pretty great because we save a lot of time of development by using this you get as you see philosophy. So it's pretty great. The next thing that we have in Power Apps is this right pane in which we can configure the properties for our controls. For example, I was adding this button and you saw how I changed the color to red on this right area of the screen. So here is where we update all those properties of our app, of our objects. But that doesn't really mean that we can only change the color or the font or the font size. We can also change the properties about what the button is gonna do if we do anything. We can add formulas to it, and we do that in the advanced tab. There are different things that we can do here, and we will be covering them as we go with this lab. Then we have the property drop-down list, and that is located on this area of the screen. You can see that I have selected my button, and if I open this drop-down, I see different properties of that button. I can, for example, see the color here, and you see that the color in this case is specified as the color of the font, and it's white. And this is the very same thing that I defined on this area of the screen. So if I change it to red, it immediately changes also in this formula bar. So everything that we select on this drop-down list also is reflected on the formula bar. And we can update the values from here by selecting the color, or we can also select the property on this area of the screen and change it on this right side. And this actually takes us to talk about the formula bar, which is the next element in the Power Apps environment in the Creation Studio. Here, pretty much what we can do is set up every single control, every single item that we add to our app. We can set it up here. For example, with the same object of the button, if we go to the properties list, you can see how we can have a property called onSelect, which pretty much is for whatever we want to do the button to do whenever our user clicks on it. So here it's set to false as default, but here's where we set up what we want this button to do whenever it's selected. So this property drop down, the formula bar, and the properties pane in the right are pretty linked between them, because sometimes you can do a setup from either or, like what we were taking a look in the color. So we can set up the color here, or we can do it on this area of the screen. So sometimes you're gonna do it here because it's faster, but if you wanna add a logic, or if you wanna show it red if something happens, or green if something else happens, we can do that setup directly in the formula bar. Then we have our ribbon, in which we can select what we want to do in our app. We have different options here, and here we can add new elements into our app. We have seen labels and buttons so far, but we can also add galleries, which are mainly what help us to show the data that we have in an app and allow our users to interact with this data. We also have data tables, we have forms, media, charts, icon, and a lot of much more. We also have this view tab, in which we can see the data sources that we have connected to our app. We can see collections, variables. We can also go to action and link, somehow automate stuff into our app, and we also have some settings that we can set up in our app. Then in the right side of the screen, we also have the additional items, where we can see the app checker here. If we have any error, if there's something going on with our app, we can see it here. For example, if I remove this, you can see how immediately the app checker goes red. And if I go to formulas, I can see here that something happened. I can either see it from here, or click on this icon and click on edit the formula bar, and that's gonna show me where the error is. Then we also have the breadcrumbs here in the bottom, which is pretty much a different view of the tree view that we had here. So you can see that I have my screen 1, and inside it I have button 2. So here's those are the paths that I see for my app. If I go to button 2, that is what I get. So pretty much this shows us where a button is located in the scope of the app. Now that we have looked around Power Apps and see the general configuration where we can find stuff, we are so ready to get started with this. And the first thing that we're gonna do is just remove this, because we're not gonna use it for now, and start working with our device ordering app. And the first thing we need to do is to rename this screen. This is not mandatory. You can, if you would like to keep screen 1 as the name for your screen, that's completely right. But as a best practice, it's always a good idea to name your objects, so you make sure that you remember in the future what they do, what they are, and all of that. So, but to rename this, let's just go to the 3 dots, go to rename, and then we are gonna set it up as main screen. Then we are going to add a label. So let's go back to insert and then label. What we want to do here is just to add a header containing the name of the app and the name of the user that is logged in to the application. And you sorry about that. You can see here that my label, if I open here the property pane in the right, you're gonna see that here I have my label. In this upper area I have the drop-down list where I can see text. Here's the text that my label currently has. If I change this to text 2, immediately it's gonna show this here. But I also have this text property on this right of the screen, and I can also change it directly from here. So from either or it will work, but we will see later in this same lab what will happen if we add a formula to this text and where we can actually update it if that's the case. So we have that there. And let's rename this to header label. Yep, and then we are going to, instead of this text, we are gonna call it device ordering app. I'm gonna quickly resize this so it fits in all the screen, and now we can change the color. I'm gonna put this shade of blue, and that's the background. Now we're gonna change the color of the font. And then let's align the text, and we're gonna make it also bigger. To make it bigger, you can go directly here to the font size, make it, for example, 16. You can also do it bold or semi-bold from here, but you can also go to home, and there are a lot of options here that we also have in the property pane, and this resembles a lot of what we see in Word or Access or Excel, which we update all of those properties in the actual ribbon. So we can do that. Instead of typing in the number in the property pane, we can select it from here. We can also select the weight of our font right here, and we can also change what's gonna be the font for this item. I'm gonna leave it like this, and then we are going to add another label here. Remember that you can go here to insert label or go to this area and then text label. I'm gonna rename this to user label. And I'm gonna move it to the right corner. And finally, remember that we can add the text here or from the actual formula. And what we need to do with this specific label is to show a greeting to the user that is logged in. So we want to show something like, hello, Graciela. But not all of the users are going to be named Graciela. So we need to grab the username from where, we need to grab it from the name that they have set up in their Active Directory. So what we're going to do is remove my name from here. And then I am going to remove also the hello, and I'm going to start writing a formula. When we start writing a formula, I just type, for example, US and then an E. Power Apps will automatically give me some options, like trying to give me ideas of what I want to write. Remember that all of these functions are case sensitive, so if I write use with lowercase and then user, it doesn't recognize anything, and automatically adds the uppercase here because it knows that that's the function that I want to use. So make sure to always write properly everything, and Power Apps really cares about upper and lowercase. So then we have user, and this user function contains some information about our user. That's the email, the full name, and the image. So in this case, I need the full name because I want to say hello Graciela Martinez, so select full name. You can either select it from the list or write your own. That actually depends on you. And now, as you can see, it's grabbing my name from the app and from the directory and putting it here. What we want to do is to concatenate my name with the word hello. So I'm going to write hello between double quotes. And to do that concatenation, we are going to join the hello word with the function of the full name by using an ampersand. So it's here, and now we have the full text, and I can use either the home options to align it to right, or to make it to apply different format and all of that. Now it's really important to notice that once we added this combination of text with a function, my text property goes kind of grayed out, and it doesn't allow me anymore to do changes from here. But if I hover over it to make a change, you know, instead of saying hello, I want to change it to hi or good day. If I go here, I cannot change it from here, but once I click on it, it directly takes me where I can do the update. So once you add formulas or functions, you can no longer update anything from here. You can only do it from the formula bar. So that's important to remember, because if you want to change to hello, to hi from hello, you're not going to be able to do that from this area of the screen. So I'm just going to change it to hello. And now, you know, we have here some similar options from what we do in programming from HTML. We also have some padding, some rounding. So in the padding in the right, I'm just going to add 15. And as you can see, that changes a little bit how the name looks, and it was moved a little bit, so we added some padding on the right side. We can change it to 20. That's also gonna move it a little bit more. Now we have a very small piece of app, but we are ready to save it. We can see here that the app checker is not showing any error, so we're doing great so far. So now we can save it. I'm gonna save it, and once we save the app the first time, it's gonna be published immediately. So if we share this app with any user inside the organization or as a guest, they are immediately gonna see what we have done so far. But if I, for example, make a very quick change, just adding a new label, I get the option to save again, but then I see a second option that says publish. So this publishing is optional, but if you don't publish, the users are not gonna see the latest changes. So make sure, you know, to keep in mind, do you wanna make these changes public to everybody yet, or you don't still wanna do it? That's important, because once you click publish, a new version will be available for the users. They are gonna see the changes, so make sure to keep that in mind. And okay, we can also go to the settings here, and we can set up some options. If we, for example, want to change the icon that's gonna show whenever the app is loading, we can do that. I don't like that much that edit one, so let's select. There are a lot of items here, so I'm gonna select this one. And whenever my app loads, it's gonna show this icon instead of the edit, and we can also select a different field instead of the light blue one. So now I've done small changes. I'm gonna save it and then publish. Okay, we have the first part of the app. We have take a look at what Power Apps has in general, and now it's time to start adding some data to our app. Remember that we are creating a device ordering app, so we need a way to show the users what are the devices that are available. So to do that, let's go insert, and we can use galleries. There are different type of galleries that you can use depending on your use case. In this one, we want to show the devices, so let's select this one. After a couple of seconds, it will show us this. You can see that it all has dummy images, dummy text, and we don't want that, of course. We want to show the list of devices. So we need to start adding data. I'm gonna go to view and then data sources, or you can go directly to this data sources icon in the left pane. Then let's click on data, and let's search for import from Excel. You can see here the option is here, and it's explaining a little bit what this option is. And what we're gonna do is add static data to our app, because the devices list is not going to change. It's going to remain like that for a couple of months, so we're not going to need to update that. If by any means we're going to need to update that information, what we need to do is to use Excel Online. In this case, we're not requesting to have dynamic data. It's going to be all static, so we are completely safe to go with this option. Then what that's going to do, it's going to ask me where my file is, and what we need to do is to select the device or their data file that this lab provides. And we have two options, two tables inside this file, and we're gonna select both of them. Okay, now you can see here in the left pane that I have my two new tables that were imported from Excel. And then just before moving forward, I'm gonna rename this gallery to device gallery. Now what we need to do is to point this gallery to the new table that we have just brought into the app, and that's gonna be the devices table. This is how the file looks. We have two tables, one is for the manufacturers and the other one for devices. So we want to show this list of devices for the users to see, and we have some images there in the two last columns. So we are going to select devices from here, and as you can see, Power Apps is super smart. Automatically it detected some of the data types that I had in my data. It recognized that I had images in the photo column. It also recognized that my main column is device name. If we would be connecting this, for example, to a SharePoint site, generally it takes the title, and it takes important columns from our list, and if there's any image type, it's gonna put it directly. So as you can see, by default, Power Apps did a lot of the setup for us, and we have this device list almost up and running for us to start using. Now, of course, Power Apps is very smart, and we can it does for us a lot of things, but most of the time we need to add some customizations to our app so we can adjust it to the specific needs that we have. So the first thing that I did, as you realize, was putting the app only on the right side of the screen, because I'm gonna leave this left area of the screen to add the manufacturers, so our users can filter by Acer and all of that. Before moving forward, keep in mind that we have this gallery and we have it on this left side of the screen, and if I select the whole gallery, I am selecting the setup for the whole thing. I am not selecting the setup for each specific item of the gallery. But remember that galleries are like templates, so it's like we have a table, and we are just setting up how the first row it's gonna look, and by default Power Apps is gonna copy whatever we do to the first row, it's gonna copy in the other records. So that's pretty much what we do here. So if we select the whole device gallery, it's gonna grab the whole object in which we have all the records. But if we, for example, want to change this all-in-one to a different type of data, we cannot select it. I cannot go to this Ultrabook. If you see, if I try to click on it, what it does is selecting the whole gallery. I can only do changes to how each of the specific items of the gallery look by using the first item always. So keep that in mind. If I go back and make it wider, if I go to the third item, I cannot do that. If I try to scroll to the right, I cannot select it either. But if I select it from the first one, it allows me to do changes and to select this. Keep also in mind that you can use this edit icon and that automatically select where you need to do those edits into the app. So let's make it again smaller, and you can make it smaller by dragging and by moving around the cursor, but you can also do it here in the size properties. So you can select it, for example, to 66 here at the end, and then move it a little bit. Now I'm gonna click on the edit icon, which is the very same as if I would be selecting here, and then I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. You can see that as I make it smaller, the image also goes smaller. That's pretty great because the setup is done automatically by Power Apps. I'm gonna leave it like this. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and add the gallery for the manufacturer. So let's go to Insert, Gallery. For the devices, we selected this one. For the manufacturers, we're gonna select vertical, and we are going to rename this to Manufacturer Gallery. And again, by default, what Power Apps is doing is just giving us a sample gallery. We definitely don't want that, so we just go to Data Source, select Manufacturers, and Magic. You will see how we had two images columns in the manufacturer, so now it's kind of recognizing the image of the office of the manufacturer. We really don't want that. We want to change the layout because in this case we just want to show the image of the brand. We don't want to show all this information. So what I'm gonna do is first thing, resize this so it fits on the space that I've assigned to it. You can see how automatically moves everything around, like this icon at the end doesn't disappear, it moves with the width of the gallery that I defined. So that's pretty great. And galleries are amazing because this is the default layout that we get when we select a new gallery, but you can also go here and select different ones. In this case, I don't want this icon, I don't want this text going there. What I want is just to show the image of the brand, and by default it shows me two columns of images, and I just want to have one. Even though that's the default for the type of layout that I selected, that doesn't mean that I cannot change it. So I'm just gonna go to grab count, put one there, and yep, it's looking great. Now I'm gonna save it for now, and remember that we don't want to have the office image because I cannot really see that this is Acer, so I prefer to have the logo there. So instead of mapping this image to the HQ column, what we're gonna do is to map it to the logo image. So I'm gonna click edit, and then I'm gonna click on image 3. You can see how this is defaulting to this item.hq. So what I'm gonna do is change it to logo, and that looks a lot better. And I'm gonna resize my image to look like this. I'm gonna also make this smaller, and you can see how great it looks after a couple of changes, and now I have all my manufacturers in one single view, and it looks actually pretty great. So yep, now we have that here, and I did this manually. I changed this image to the size that I wanted, but what we can also do is to use the default resizing options from Power Apps. I'm gonna undo a couple of changes, go back to my image, and here we have different options for the image. You can click on Fill, Center, Fit, Stretch, and Tile. I'm gonna click on Fit, and that's gonna automatically change it, and as you can see, it looks awesome as well. So I'm just gonna make it, I'm gonna just reduce the height, because you know I want to go to a similar view to what I had a couple of minutes ago. So let's a little bit more. Okay. Now what we want to do is to give the users the ability to filter the devices by the manufacturers, because you know here we have a huge list and it may be difficult to browse and to find whatever we want to find. But if, for example, I'm sure I want a Microsoft device or a Samsung device, I can just click on it and it's gonna just show me the items that I want to see from that specific manufacturer. So I'm gonna select here this on this gallery, and I'm gonna go to the items property in this drop down of properties. So if you select on it and then go to the drop down, select items, and that's gonna show you that this is linked to the devices table that we just brought from Excel. So here's where we can apply filters and add new columns, sort columns, do a lot of things. So what we need to do is to add a function here, and what we need to do is to filter this devices list by the selected manufacturer on the left. So as the name says, we're gonna use the filter function. So we're gonna filter the devices table when and we want to show only items where the manufacturer ID sorry, and as you can see, I start typing in and it starts giving me some options of what I can use. I generally try to select it because I just always want to avoid any typo. So manufacturer ID is equal to the selected manufacturer ID in my gallery in the left. Let's remember that our gallery is called manufacturer gallery. So I'm just gonna start typing manufacturer again, and it's gonna start showing me all my options. My gallery is here, and as you can see, it has single quotes at the beginning and at the end because it has a space in the middle. So if I select on it, you're gonna see how automatically it also adds those into my my formula bar. Then from this gallery we need the selected item, so let's write selected, and then we're gonna select the manufacturer ID from the manufacturer. So I missed the single quote here. Okay, so I have this small part ready, so I'm just gonna click on play, and you know, once I click on each of the items, it's gonna be showing me the different devices for each manufacturer. So that worked out pretty great. So let's close it, and what we need to do then is I wanna find a way for the users to know what is the selected manufacturer. So for that, we're gonna use a function to the manufacturer gallery, so we can, you know, identify what is a selected item. So remember that we have two types of properties when it comes to galleries. If we select the whole object, we are doing setups to all the gallery itself. If we select the edit icon, it's gonna select just the first one, and it's gonna give us options for those specific items. You can see here that I am selecting just the first row, so I am selecting only that. And what we need to do is to look for the template field property here, and as you can see, it is just set up to B0, that's white or transparent background. So what I'm gonna do is change it to if this item is selected. This is a pretty nice function from Power Apps. We don't have to do anything but to type that to see if an item is selected in the gallery. So you can see how, you know, this is a low code app. We still do some setup. We still need to add some functions to it, but even adding the functions is really simple, and it's, you know, very friendly for all of the users. And there's nothing fancy that we need to do to identify what is a selected item other than using this item that is selected. So it's pretty great. We also have another great feature in Power Apps, which is adding colors by default. So you don't really need to know what's the code for the color. When we were checking, for example, if I go here and select field, you can see that it is in RGB code, and at the end there's a transparency that we are setting up here. But we don't always need to know that code. We can, if I go back and select the template field and I change it to red, it's gonna show a very ugly shade of red, but it's also gonna show red. So it's great because Power Apps has a lot of out-of-the-box colors that you can just grab from here without knowing what's the code behind the scenes from them. Now if I click play and I keep selecting the different items, I now can see what is selected. So that's pretty great as well. You can click play and start previewing your app, how it's gonna look for the end users, but you can also, for example, point your mouse over where you wanna click and then click on control and then click, shift control and then click. So you can do that directly from the canvas. So you don't really need to go to play and do it. For some reason, I always prefer to go to play, but you can do that directly from here. Keep that in mind. Okay, so this left part is ready. I'm just gonna put it here. Okay, now in this, in the right side of the screen where our devices are showing, we're gonna do some changes to the information that we are showing. And so you can see here, I'm gonna change this label. For now, it is pointing to the device type column from my file, but I don't wanna really show the device type. I want to show the price. So what I'm just gonna do is to remove the device price and start typing price. That's gonna automatically show here. And then what I need to do is I want to show this in a different format, because now it looks just like a random number, it doesn't look like currency. So we're gonna apply some formatting to this. I'm just gonna start typing text. This is the function that we use in Power Apps to format or values or text into different formats. So I'm just gonna add, because I wanna format the price, I'm gonna put it in the first argument, that's my value, and then I wanna show Power Apps what's the format I wanna show this data in. So I'm just gonna start with double quotes, my currency sign, and then like this. Okay, and now it actually looks quite good. Okay, now that we have that, I just removed the two dots and the zeros at the end. And then here we're also gonna change the label at the top, because here it's currently set to use the device name, but we're gonna change it to use the title, because that's what we want the users to see. We don't want them to see the device name, we want to see the title. Now we are going to also show this this number. We want to show different colors depending on the price. That's pretty important because the users will be able to quickly identify what are the cheaper devices and what are the ones that are a little bit more expensive. So the rule that we want to apply is, if the device's cost is more than $1,000, then we want to show the price in red. If the device is less, then we're going to show it in gray. As you remember, we have here in the right the color property. I can change it to here to a reddish color, but I can do only one change. Once I change it to red, all my items go red. It's not like I can select what will go red and what will go gray depending on the value from this right of the screen. Remember that when we're gonna add some logic and functions, we need to do that from the drop down. So I'm just gonna go to the color property, and I'm gonna remove this, and I will start typing if this item dot price is higher than 1,000, then please show this as orange red, and if not, show gray. And you can see that now it's working fine. We can see that this third device is over $1,000, hence showing reddish, and then all of the other items are showing gray. So that's pretty amazing, and we just did it with a couple of typings in the color function. To make it look a little bit more neat, I'm gonna put the images a little bit towards the middle so they don't look like very much in the top. And another feature that we want to give to our users is the ability to compare the devices among them. So we want our users to come here, start selecting the manufacturers, select the devices that they are interested in, and then allow them to compare the different devices. So we need to do that by using a checkbox. So I'm gonna go to the edit icon on my gallery, then go to input, and then select checkbox. You can see that I added it just on the first one, but it's being added on all of the items because that's how Power Apps work. The first item is just our template, and it's just gonna replicate everywhere else in our gallery. So that's another awesome feature in Power Apps. Then we of course don't want to show this option text, we want to show it as compare. So I'm just going to go to the text property on the right side of the screen and change it to compare. I can also do that from the formula bar. And then we need a way to see what are the devices that our users are checking and for comparison. So if I click here on play and I start checking, I am doing this on the interface, but behind the scenes the app isn't really doing anything because I'm just selecting the items, but I still haven't set up what I want to do when this is checked. So there's specifically a property for that selection event from the user. If I select my checkbox and I go to the drop down and then I look for the uncheck property, that's gonna take me, okay, what do you want to do whenever the user checks this checkbox? So by default it's set up to false, but what we're gonna do is to leverage a concept in Power Apps that is called collections. Collections allow us to store data for the current session. For example, when I open the app, I can start and use a collection and store the information of what the user is selecting to compare there. And if I close my app and I didn't select a device and then I open it again, that collection is going to be refreshed. It's not going to remember what I did the first time whenever I was selecting the devices when I had opened the app, because that information just lives for the current session. Whenever the user has the app open, then is what the data is going to live. If you close it and then come back, it's not going to remember what you did. But if you leave the app open and it doesn't refresh, then you're going to remember it. So we're going to leverage that collection concept to identify what are the items or the devices that our users want to compare. So I'm just gonna go collect and then compare. I'm gonna call my collection compare list, and what I want to do is to add the whole thing, the whole item that includes all the information about this item into my list. So I'm just gonna go this item. And then it may be that our users by mistake select something and they don't want to at the end compare it because they did it by mistake. So we need to, as we did what we want to do when the user checks something, we also need to let the app know what do we want to do when the user unchecks anything. So if we go to the uncheck, I'm going to click on the formula bar and start typing remove. Remember the previous time when we wanted to add it, what we were doing is collecting the item, not we are removing it from the collection. So I'm gonna go compare list and then this item. Okay, and now finally another setup that we need to do for this is in the default. We want to set up this for the checkbox to identify if it already exists in the collection or not. So what we're gonna do is the default is always set to false. So if I set it to true, it's gonna be always checked whenever I open this. It's taking a little while to load. Okay, so you can see once it changed to true, everything is checked on my gallery. So what I need to do instead of hard writing true or false, I want to check if this device, the current device for each checkbox, exists in the collection. So we do that by using this item in compare list. So we are checking the compare list collection and checking if this item exists there. Okay, so it has been loaded. Let's click on play. I'm gonna click 3 or 4. So you can see that if I go to Acer, it still keeps what I had here. If I go to there, it also goes here, and so on. So okay. And if I go here to view and then go to collections, it's gonna automatically identify what are the collections that I have set up for this app. And I only have one, which is the compare list. And here I have everything that has been added to my app. And since I added the whole thing, when I was collecting the items into my collections, I just typed this item. That means that I am adding all the data that we have available for that item. That's device name, ID, type, manufacturer, everything. So that's pretty great because we are very easily storing a lot of information about our devices into our collection. We not only are storing, the title and the price, we are also storing everything about every information that we know about our device. Now, when we open this app, we always want the first manufacturer to be automatically selected in this. So by default, every time that we open the app, the devices that are shown are always the ones that connect to the first manufacturer. So I'm just gonna go back, select the manufacturer gallery, then here let's search for the default property, and I'm gonna set this up to first manufacturer. Okay, and this will set the first item in the manufacturer's list to always be automatically selected. Now that we have the feature to start comparing, we need a way to show the users what are they trying to compare, because they can go to different manufacturers and select different items, and we want to show them what is it that they have been selecting when they have been browsing through the devices that we have. So I'm just gonna go to insert and go to add a new screen, and I'm gonna select blank. We're gonna rename it to compare screen. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so I see all the canvas, and we are going to add a new button here. Sorry, I'm gonna remove it, go back again to the main screen and add it here. And here I am going to change. What I want to do with this button is to show them an option to go to the compare screen so they can actually compare the devices. So I'm gonna go to the text property and change this to compare, and we want to show them how many items they have been adding to our compare list for comparison. And we can do that by using the count rows function and go on the compare list collection. Remember that we are concatenating with the ampersand, so I'm just gonna concatenate with items here. Now I'm gonna make this a little bit wider, and for example, if I play it and I remove an item from here, it's gonna go back to 6, then 7. If I compare, I select this one, goes to 8, and so on. And what happens if there's nothing selected? Of course, if there's nothing selected, there's nothing to compare on. So we can also add a feature to this app for this button to be disabled if there's nothing selected. So we already have our function here to count the number of items that we have in our compare list. So you can rewrite it, but you can also copy it and reuse it. So I'm just gonna click again on this button, and I'm gonna go to my display mode property. You can see that this is set up to display mode.edit, and I can go to disabled. That's gonna change to display mode.disabled. So what we want to do is to interchange between those two type of properties and assign it depending on the number of rows that we have in our gallery. So I'm just gonna go if count rows is greater than 0, then display mode should be edit, and if not, disabled. In this case, it's always gonna show edit because we have 8 items selected. Now we have this option, but we can also give the users the option to remove everything that they have selected and start from scratch again. So we are going to add a restart option. I'm gonna select again my button, I'm gonna put it here, and I'm gonna name this to clear selection. Remember that now that I added a function to this text, I cannot edit it from here, but if I click it, it takes me directly to where I can actually do that. So I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna write clear selection. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is go to the onSelect property, and what we want to do on this specific item is to go clear. We're gonna clear the compare list. Okay, let's click on play. I'm gonna clear selection, and as you can see, if I go back to all the manufacturers that I know that I selected, now nothing is showing. But once I start selecting, now I see this going again to be in edit mode, so I can click them. So this is working perfectly. Now remember that here we have set it up for clear the selection of whatever we have checked in the devices list, but for this compare one items we still haven't set what we want this button to do. So what I'm gonna do is go to action and then go to navigate. This is gonna automatically identify what are the screens that we have, and we have the main screen and the compare screen. So whenever our user clicks on that button, we want to go to the compare screen in a fake transition, and that, as you can see, automatically add the code into my onSelect property of the button. So that's pretty great. Now we are going to set up the compare screen. If I go back to the main screen, I'm gonna select this user label and the header label, and I'm gonna group them. I'm gonna rename this group to header. Then I can grab this whole group, click on the three dots, click on copy, and then go to the compare screen and then paste it. That's gonna paste the two things into my new screen. Now I'm gonna go here to the main screen and grab the gallery that I already have, because I have already set it up as I need it. So I'm gonna copy it, go to the home screen again, and paste it. As you can see, whenever we copy and paste, since the name is gonna be repeated, it adds an underscore and a number at the end. This is no longer a device gallery, this is a compare list gallery, so I'm just gonna rename it as well. Okay, so for now this is set up to be showing us the devices filtered by the manufacturer ID. What we want to do is, remove this, and it's gonna error out for a second. You can see here that nothing shows up, and now we have these red icons with errors. So what we need to do is to map this gallery to the compare list collection that we created. Now I have only one selected, but I'm gonna go back real quick to this to select more devices. Okay, if I now click on compare 6 items, I now see the 6 of them. Of course, we no longer need this compare icon here because we are already comparing in this screen, so I'm just gonna select it and move it away. And I'm gonna add to this gallery another label, and I want to show the manufacturer name. Let's remove this and add manufacturer name. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. I'm gonna put it to 18 and then select it to bold. Okay. Now I'm gonna also show the memory of the device. So I will do the same thing, go to edit, insert, text label, and then memory. Didn't take the last character that I typed, but I can just go back and add it with no issues. I'm gonna make it again a little bit bigger. Okay. And here we can do different things. We can keep adding new labels to what we have here, but we can also just copy and paste inside the gallery. So it's gonna grab the format of the item that we are copying instead of us having to redo it many other times. So instead of memory, I'm gonna use processor. I'm gonna make this one bigger, and I'm gonna paste again inside my template, and I'm gonna select the storage. And finally, I'm gonna go with the screen size. You can add as many details as you would like here. That really depends on how many items you want to keep adding. This is what I think a regular user would require to see. They would require to see about a device to see how good or bad it is. So I'm gonna leave it here. And now what we are gonna do is to highlight what is the item that we have selected in this app. We're gonna do a similar thing to what we did in the manufacturer list. So we can go, for example, to template fill, and I'm gonna copy all the function that we have here. We can paste it into our formula here if we go to the template field here. Another interesting thing that we can do in case we want to add dynamic color into our app is set up the color of something based on the color of something else. So in this case, let's suppose that we want to set up the color of our header label, and if I change it to purple here, to red, for example, I would like everything to change in that order. Like, I don't want to be changing item by item. What I can do is to set up the color of this selection based on the selection of my label here. So this is pretty nice, and we're gonna see how to do it. I'm gonna remove this light blue color, and I'm gonna select color fade. That's gonna grab the color fade from our header label. Dot fill, and we're gonna set it up to 70 to around maybe 50%, so it doesn't look that dark. And yeah, as you can see, I changed this one to red, but this is header label _1. If I go to the main screen and change this to red, if I go here, now it's gonna show a different color. So this is pretty useful in case you wanna test different shades of color and you wanna see how that looks for all the other items in your app. We could also have these buttons mapping to the color of the header label. So keep that in mind. We are also, I'm gonna set up this to around 30% so it doesn't look that dark. Sorry, 75. Okay, and then we are also going to add an icon to this screen, so this the users can go back. I'm gonna select this icons section and I'm gonna click on left. I'm gonna add it here, change it to white, And again, we're going to go to Action, Navigate, and then we're going to navigate to the main screen. Okay. I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger so we cover the whole screen. We're gonna come back to this a little bit later. Now we're gonna then test the full app and see how it's working. So let's click on play. I'm gonna clear my selection, start from 0. I'm gonna check this device. And then once I have these 3 devices that I'm interested in, I'm gonna click on compare 3 items. I see here the whole list. I can go back to the previous screen in case I wanna add a Surface Pro, then Samsung, and then go back to compare. And if I go back, it's gonna keep remembering my selection. And if I go here, I'm gonna see more. I can keep clicking on everything because now my coloring is changing depending on that. And now I can use this close icon, and as you can see, everything is working perfectly so far. It's looking pretty good. And optionally, you can test this in your mobile phone or in a tablet. You can download from the Play Store the Power Apps app, and you can sign in with your account, and you should see the list of apps that you have created. So you should see this device ordering app in the list. Once you see it there, just open it and you can start playing with it. Additionally, if you have other users that may be checking this app, you can also share it with them so they can play around with this. If you go to File, and then once you have published, you can see the share option here, or you can always see it in this left pane. If you share, it's gonna open a new tab into your browser. As you can see now, I'm the only user, and you can start adding more people here, or you can also, for example, type everyone in the organization, and the app is going to be automatically shared with every person in the organization. And you can also share it with other users and make them owners so they can see how the app works and they can make changes to it. And this is it for now for this very first lab. I hope that you learned a lot and that you are excited to see what is coming up for the future labs, because we are doing great at Batman here. So make sure to continue with the next videos and learning a lot. Thank you so much, and see you in the next lab.